This is the chassis out of a Stewart-Warner model R-109A. I have it out of the cabinet right now. The cabinet is already finished, but I have some before and after pictures to show you before we start talking about the chassis. So let's take a quick look at those and then we'll get right back to this. Okay, there's the cabinet as it came to me. It was in pretty good shape but a little rough. The front looked okay. There's a close-up of the knobs and the dial. The biggest problem was someone had coated the top and sides with shellac and made a real mess of it. There's the chassis before I cleaned it up. You can see how dirty it was. These radios have open backs and they just get very dusty inside if you let them. There's a close-up of the dial. I'll talk about that more in the upcoming video. Here's what the cabinet looks like now. It's all done and ready to go. Really looks great. The grill cloth is nice enough to reuse. It doesn't have any problems, so that's going to look nice also. Here's the back, and that little tag at the top, here's a close-up of it, and it says it came from a Myron Frank store in Portland, Oregon, so this radio has spent its entire life in Oregon. Okay, back to the chassis. It is a 6-tube transformer set. Let me spin it around and show you the tubes. Six tubes, including this nice blue Arcturus tube, which happens to be a 55. It's in pretty good shape. I've cleaned it up a little bit. It could stand some more cleaning, but it's on its way. I've already tested it, and it works, and that's because it's had extensive repairs done over the years. And we'll get to those in a minute. We'll look at the underside here in a sec. Here's the speaker. It's pretty stout, but still works. It has a very small hole in the cone I'm going to have to fix, and it's still pretty dusty around the back and everything. But I put this over it for now so we don't put any more holes in it. One of the first things I did when I got this all out of the cabinet was disconnect the speaker. It was hardwired in there, so I just used these automotive connectors and color-coded the wires, and so this way you can just connect and disconnect it easily, and that way the speaker can stay in the cabinet if you need to take the chassis out to work on it. You don't have to take them both out. Because I did this because I wanted to be able to work on the chassis without dragging this around with it like some kind of boat anchor. So let's set that aside. Like I said, this works. I've tested it just enough to know that it works, and it works fairly well. And like I said, that's because it's had extensive repairs. The electrolytic capacitors were originally in these two cans here on top. They're both 8 microfarad electrolytic capacitors. These, I'm sure, went bad years ago. It's a very old radio. So these were replaced. They were disconnected underneath and were replaced with this. You can see these are the original electrolytics right here, and they've been disconnected, taken out of the circuit, and they were replaced with this double 8. There's actually 2 capacitors in one. They're a double 8, and that's the correct value for this. I'm going to be replacing these with a couple of 10s because that's what I have handy, and those will work fine. All the blue tape that you see is me going through and identifying everything. I have a nice copy of the schematic here and a parts list, and I've just been studying this as best I can. I'm not the world's greatest schematic reader, but I do okay. And just been marking everything with the value of the component and the number off of the parts list. So for example, over here, this resistor is part number 1 and this capacitor next to it is part number 2. And I just try to do that everywhere. Most of these capacitors have been replaced. These blue solar caps are a lot newer than this radio. And these are really impressive A lot of the old wax and paper caps go bad. These blue Solar caps, I swear, every radio I've ever seen that has them, they're still working. These are really impressive, but they're going to get replaced because they're old. So everywhere you see one of those, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 3 of them taped together down here, so there's 8 of those, and they're all 0.1, which is not correct. I think there are only supposed to be 4 0.1s in this radio. The values on these are off. They just replaced them. I assume they're all 0.1s. They look the same as these. I'll have to unwrap the tape and see if I can figure that out. But it doesn't matter. They're all going to get replaced. I know what the values are supposed to be on these and everything else at this point. These 2 that are in the plain brown tubes are the only original capacitors left in the radio. And like I said, the radio works. These are all old repairs, and some of these repairs are a little shaky. You know, long lengths of wire just kind of floating around in there, and so we're going to work on that. This is a good example. This 100K dog bone resistor. I have tape on it, so it's hard to see, but it's this 100K dog bone resistor here. I'll get the tape off of it. Yeah. Okay. That is still in the circuit, but someone's added another 100K resistor, a newer one, and then just spliced it onto this wire that runs across over here to this coil. And so I think when I get in here, I'm going to take both of these old resistors out and just put in one brand new 100K ohm resistor, and then find a better way to connect it if I can get a terminal strip in here. There's a lot of places, where the cans are attached to the chassis and other things where I can add terminal strips to try and clean this up some, because it's you know, like I said, some of this stuff's kind of sloppy, but overall it actually, whoever did it did a pretty good job. There are a few things along with this that confuse me. I don't think this blue ceramic resistor needs to be here anymore. I don't think it's sitting right next to this old wire wound resistor. And according to the schematic, it's a 2-part wire wound resistor. This side is a 10K ohm, and this is a 7.5K ohm. And I've tested it, and it works. Both sides ohm out exactly, or really close to what they should be. So this is still a good resistor. So I don't know what this blue ceramic one's doing in here. I think the 7.5K side was originally connected to one of the electrolytics. If you put these two together, it sure looks like that's what happened. Is it was connected there, and that connection came apart, and I don't know if somebody decided to add that after or not, but it doesn't matter. I don't think it needs to be there. I'm going to try to get rid of it. Anyway, that is pretty much what we're looking at here. The cord is a little iffy. I'm going to take a short section of it and save a short section of it and get rid of the rest and move the plug, you know, to that short section and just keep a short section of it temporarily for testing. I don't want to put my new cord on there yet because this cloth covered wire, the cloth, it can snag on things and it'll fray, and I want to keep it nice, so I will put the new cord on last along with the new plug. In here I have the new Acorn style plug, so we'll just keep the old cord on there now. And I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up the connection where the line cord comes in. The neutral side is going to the transformer. It has a line isolation cap here, and then it's just going to the transformer, and the wires there's just old electrical tape on there, or friction tape, whatever it is. And then of course the hot side of the line cord is going up here to the switch, and there's another line isolation capacitor there. Underneath this capacitor, I mean, it's attached to the chassis with this loop, and a hex nut. So I'm going to put a terminal strip in there, and we're gonna redo all of that and clean that up and make it better. And that'll be the first thing we do, is just improve the connections for the power cord and install new line isolation capacitors. I've got some safety capacitors that we're going to put in there, and we're just going to clean all that up first, and then we'll test it and make sure that it's still working properly. And then we'll put the new electrolytics in, which is always a good place to start. And you know, once we have that, then it just should be a fairly straightforward, you know, just one or two things at a time, just replacing them, because you know, we know, I know where everything goes, and I know what the values are supposed to be, and so it should be pretty straightforward. I'm not just going to shotgun everything in there and hope that it works. I'm going to do, you know, I'll replace one or two things and test it and make sure it's still working, and then replace one or two things and then test it and make sure it's still working, and so on. And that's the best way to do it. I'll show you one or two other quick things, and then we'll wrap this up. This is, you'll notice the tuning capacitor is loose. And that's because I took one of the nuts and bolts out so I could get one of the rubber grommets out so I could measure it and order new ones. And I've done that. I ordered them the other day, so they'll be here pretty soon. And we'll get that. I'm going to take this off and get it all cleaned up, and then when we put it back in, we'll put in the new rubber grommets and everything, and it should be really nice. In this box, I keep this in here to protect it. This is the dial. And it's that phenolic or maybe celluloid, I'm not sure which. And it's, you know, I'm going to keep that in focus, I don't know. It's really nice, you know, it's aged. You know, it probably, you know, I don't know if I don't want to try to clean it too much because it's very fragile, and I don't want to take any of the numbering off, but it you know, how this works is you turn the tuning knob, and there's a little rubber donut at the back of this tuner shaft, and that rides up against this toothed gear, and the dial goes right there, and the dial moves back and forth, and the tuning indicator stays stationary in the cabinet. And so, you know, the dial moves to show you where your station is, and of course the light shines right through it. You can see that, you know, you can see the light shining through it. So the dial light shines right through it and lights it up really. So it should look really nice. You know, I'm gonna try to see if I can clean it up a little bit, but I keep it in this box for now while we're working on all of this, so nothing happens to it. And I'll put that away in a second. And I think that's about it for now. I think you know, I've got my my schematic all ready to go, and my parts list, like I said, and that's always good. And there's alignment instructions and everything on here, so we'll see if we can't, once we get everything done, we'll see if we can't get some kind of alignment done on this thing. I don't have the world's greatest equipment for aligning things. I have a very small signal generator, but you know, I've done it a couple of times, and I'm getting better at it, so... but that's a quick look at it. I just wanted to get the introduction in here, and we'll start working on replacing those line cord connections. Like I said, that's going to be the first step, and then we'll move on to the electrolytics. So stay tuned for that. Thanks.